I'm Bob Henderson, I'm the Nomad Dad. I'm going to give you the real story of living in Mexico. Part of my plan B is I've got permanent residency in Mexico, live half the year there. We live in the state of Jalisco near Lake Chapala. It's the largest freshwater lake in Mexico. We're in the mountains at 5,000 feet, and the weather's perfect. 10 months out of the year, in the 70s and sunny most days, maybe creeps up to low 80s. You need to come see us. Beautiful spot. You know, when I talk to people, when I'm back in the States and we talk about what I do the rest of the year, the first comment I get, and it goes with, it's just everybody, are you safe? And I answer the question this way, well, are you safe in the nearest big city? And they can't answer it because they know they're not. Just look at what's going on in the major American cities today. And so I think by and large, yeah, we're safe. I think you need to be aware of your surroundings. Here's two things you definitely shouldn't do. Don't drive an expensive car. Don't wear expensive jewelry. Don't be a target. Don't stand out, that sort of thing. Maybe that's one difference. Although I'm not sure that you could walk down the streets of certain cities in the US and have expensive jewelry and not expect somebody to maybe pay you an unexpected visit. So those are a couple of just kind of common sense things. But where we live, it's kind of a softer landing rather than, you know, a hard landing. And I don't think that the language is a barrier. I think it's good to know a little bit of Spanish. You know, I'm a kind of a coffeeholic, and I'm very picky about my coffee. It's about the only thing I really am picky about. So the one thing I like drip coffee usually. I'm not a big espresso fan in limited doses. So one of my favorite coffee shops, they've got drip coffee, but it's in the pot, and you know you can smell it because it's at the bottom of the pot, and it's you know it's there's not much coffee there, so it's burning. It doesn't smell good. And so I've learned to tell the ladies that work at the coffee shop, and correct me if my Spanish is not very good, yo espero café fresco. And that means I will wait for fresh coffee. And I think they appreciate that. I've tried to learn a few words, and I usually get a smile. Oh, here comes that guy again. He wants his fresh coffee. But I think wherever you go, and we're talking specifically here about Mexico, it's good to learn a few words besides gracias or, you know, that sort of thing. But, and that reminds me, one of my favorite bakeries in the world is in Belgrade, Serbia. And I was there once a few years ago, and I'm in the bakery, and I loved one of the pastries, and the lady behind the counter put up one finger, two fingers, what did I want? And I said, dva. That means two. And she got a big smile on her face. I think dva is two in Russian, if I'm not mistaken, although the Serbians do not speak Russian. But, you know, they appreciate when you just do little things like that. And now, you know, you're going to probably get better service. I always feel good about it. And the other thing I try to do, whenever I'm in another country, I try to learn how to say please and thank you. So I left the bakery in Belgrade and I said, Vala, and that means thank you, another big smile on her face. Well, back to Mexico. The other question I get from, well, is it safe? Well, what about the medical care? You know, because I'm getting a little older, I should be decrepit by now. Here's what I think about the medical care, personal experience and one of my friends' experience. It's, I've got a physician, I've got a dentist, and they were both recommended by a neighbor of ours who is Mexican but practiced medicine in the US. I can say that the personal physician, I have never seen more thorough care than I've gotten from this woman. All these people that I deal with are all women, by the way. They're in their 30s, maybe 40 years old. And I have a specialist for something that I require some kind of monitoring on. And she does testing for me for the half a year that I'm there. And then I come back to the States and I give the specialist there the results of her test, and he's quite happy with what he's seeing. And if I need surgery or I need some sort of special accommodation, I'm very confident that she can take care of it. We're not that far from Guadalajara, which is a big city, and some of these doctors come over from Guadalajara, so we're getting great service. And I've got another friend of mine whose wife had a stroke, and she was only in her late 50s, and she was in the hospital there, I think for a week or 10 days or so, and it just really didn't cost all that much money, but that's not the big deal. The care, she can't talk enough about how good the care was. And my favorite story, told by my friend, her husband, when they left, the cardiologist came up to him and he said, "Here's my cell phone number. Call me anytime." I mean, you're not going to get that everywhere. So as to the medical care, pretty tip-top. I think a lot of Americans think, and I was at an airport the other day in the U.S. talking to an American who's traveled a little bit, and we both came to the conclusion, Americans need to get out a little bit. They're a little bit provincial. They think, well, what we have is the very best. I'm not here to knock the American health system. I've gotten tremendous care over the years. But that doesn't mean there isn't really good care in other parts of the world. And I know the Nomad Capitalist, Andrew, is talking about this all the time. You need to get out a bit and experience the world. Now, I will say one thing about Mexico. It is a little bit more bureaucratic. So here's what I do. I have an attorney to help me with certain things. And since we own property, I definitely, and I think this is really important, it's important, I think, no matter where you are, but we hired a property manager. And she takes care of things when we're not there. But just as importantly, if we're there, let's say I need somebody to do something with plumbing or electrical or what have you, she'll get me somebody and they will come over and fix the problem. And the other thing I get so upset about, well, it's Mexicans, mañana, they never show up. That is not true. Now, maybe it's because I've got the property manager and they're somewhat indebted to her and they know that if they fall short for me, I might talk to her about it and they'll lose a valued customer, i.e. her. But I'm getting tremendous service from these people. And it's another thing that I just think that Americans need to stop their preconceived notions. Life is not perfect there. There are issues, but I think generally it's safe. You keep aware of your surroundings. You hang on to your personal possessions. And you know what? Don't stay out after midnight. I don't care where you are. Nothing good happens after midnight. So one last comment on living in Mexico. And I've noticed this more so recently. There are expats, they could be Canadian or US, and they come down and I have seen them berate the Mexicans in the stores because they won't speak English. Get over yourselves. You're coming down to this culture. It's kind of like when in Rome, do as the Romans, right? You left wherever you were, at least partially or fully, because you didn't like what was going on in your home country or your home state. Don't try to impose your culture on these people. And I get so sick and tired of seeing that sort of thing. And I think there'll be repercussions at some point. I'm really concerned because we've kind of, the expats, we've more or less gentrified some of these neighborhoods. And it's hard for some of these people to afford rent in some of these communities. And here's a quick story in conclusion. One of my favorite restaurants in the area is run by a Mexican, speaks perfect English, wonderful kid. And he told me, Bob, don't over tip. What do you mean? I'm just trying to be helpful to these people. They're giving me great service and I know how high the rents have gone and all. He says, well, that's the problem. Too many people come here and over tip and it just drives up the prices on everything. And I never thought of that. And that's really an interesting point of view. And it's gotten to the point where he's having a hard time paying the rent on his particular property because of the way the neighborhood has been gentrified. So that's living in Mexico. It's not perfect, but by and large, I think it's been a wonderful experience. Just be aware of your surroundings. Don't be ostentatious. Don't worry about the medical care. And please don't impose your culture on these people. I think for the most part, they're wonderful people. I'm Bob Henderson, living part of the year in Mexico. I'm the Nomad Dad.